Hello everyone, Hobbyist here. We are back again with another Nemesis character guide. Last time, we talked about the soldier and just how combat ready he is. So now, we're going to be talking about the scouts inside a Nemesis that you can't control. The way that the events might pan out in the deck, sometimes even the randomization of the objectives that you get, the player help card, as the numbers actually dictate the order of which you're going to draft characters, in which that you're going to want to pick based off of who you think is going to best suit your objective. So, let's say you ended up with the scout, or you chose to select the scout. What objectives actually fits the scout the best? So, from an overall perspective, it actually makes the most sense that the scout is kind of combat oriented like the soldier. I'd say a lot more prepared than, say, the captain or the scientist especially. But the scout is a lot more sneakier, as we'll notice. She's a lot more stealthy, she's more nimble, can do a lot more different things. So I would say that when it comes to the scout, if you get a corporate objective to where you have to either escape with certain things or have to frequently traverse the ship, especially if you get any to where you have to be the sole survivor, if any of these player numbers apply to you, then that's what I would say for the corporate side. On the personal side of the objectives, I would say, again, if you have to escort somebody to survive, if you want to do best friends forever, the scout is a great one in order to pick up the scout for. Again, any that have to require a lot of movement or getting from one side of the ship to the other, as travel definitely adds to the dangers of Nemesis. Again, going back to these other two, to where if your goal is to be the only survivor, sometimes it pays to go the more sneakier route with the scout in comparison to either straight up combat or using the rooms effectively like the scientist would have to. So, now let's go a little bit forward into her action deck and what exactly that looks like for the scout. Scout has 4 cards that are specific only just to the scout, to kind of get you a feel of what exactly she's good at. She has a mixture of things that are combat oriented, things that aren't. So we'll start with this first card right here. And this is Scavenging. Probably the most useful card that I always use whenever I play as the scout. It's a non-combat only card, meaning obviously make sure there's no aliens in the room, otherwise you can't do this action right here. It costs you an additional card to do, and it works like a search action, but it's different. It really is. It says, reduce the item counter by 1. You can even perform this action even if the item counter is at 0. Draw 2 item cards of the same color as this room's color, pick one and discard the other. Essentially what this does is that it allows you to search for a room, to search inside of a room, even if there are no items in it. Normally, a lot of times, when you reduce the item counters all the way to 0, all the remaining characters have no luck of finding the items that you need. Whereas the scavenging ability gives the scout the ability to acquire items from that same room over and over again. Based off of this item alone, you can kind of come to the consensus of the fact that the scout is going to be using a lot of equipment, a lot of items, things that either go inside of her hand or inside the inventory stack to either do some crafting or a whole bunch of other things. So you want to really stock up with the scout in order to kind of maximize with her ability. But the next thing that we have is probably one of the coolest cards, is that it's Reconnaissance. It's also non-combat, so make sure there's no aliens in the room, otherwise you can't use this action specifically. It's going to cost you an extra card to do, but what it allows you to do is to move to any neighboring room without making a noise roll. This is significantly better. A lot of times the thing will say careful movement, sometimes people abbreviate and say quiet movement, but this is the true quiet movement card, to where you can be able to walk into a room that's surrounded by noise and not have to suffer the consequences for it. Just obviously make sure that you're not in the room at the end of the phase, because if you have to roll for noise, then that's the problem. But otherwise, though, this is a great card to always have, and to always get into those precarious spaces that otherwise people wouldn't go into. The next card that we have Adrenaline. Adrenaline costs you nothing. It is combat specific only, meaning you have to only use this action when you are in a room with an intruder. And you get two options. So whenever I play Nemesis and I see a card that says or, I give the people that I'm playing with the courtesy to just simply say, I'm going to use this action on this action card, and they are allowed to be sneaky with one of the two options that they pick, because the scout says you can perform a shoot action and then draw an action card. That's especially good for setting yourself up to where if you have to either run to make more noise or get more actions to be able to do just on your particular turn, or perform an escape action and then draw an action card. Sometimes it might be payoff to be able to escape, get that extra action card in your hand to where if you have to roll for noise, let's say you got lucky, the intruder didn't attack you on the way out, and you then spawn another alien, well then now you replenish the card that you needed to where you might even get a surprise attack on that turn. So that's a good card to also have, especially because it's free. The next one we have is Suppressive Fire. It works the exact same as it does with the captains, as it is only combat only. It costs you no additional cards in order to play, and it reads the exact same as the captains, to where unlike the soldier, it says discard one ammo, move yourself or one other chosen character within your room if they agree, without triggering an intruder attack. The kind of the key phrasing with this one is that even though it's you or that other character, it's the fact that they have to agree to be moved. Whereas with like the captain's orders or any other types of things, oftentimes you could just do it just to do it. So that's kind of where the key phrasing comes into play, but otherwise, again, it works pretty much the entirety of the same way as the captain's does. So just kind of looking back at the way that these cards are structured, we can see that half of the cards inside of the scout's deck are non-combat only, meaning that you can only do these if you are not in a room with an alien. Whereas these other two are combat only, meaning you can only do these cards actions if you are in a room with an alien. So the scout is going to be your best exploring character inside of Nemesis, if we're being totally honest here, because it gives you that versatility of, okay, I'm in combat, I can do what I can to get out, or if I'm not in combat, I find ways to move in, get to the rooms that I need to either help out the greater good, if you want to go that route, or to be able to sabotage other people because you have that movement to where you might not roll for noise in the direction that you go, but then other people might have to roll noise behind you if they try to follow you, they don't think they can trust you, or if you're the target of a particular player's corporate objective. So you have easy ways to kind of be more elusive in comparison to any other character inside of Nemesis. So make sure to keep an eye on that. So now we're going to transition from the action decks and we're going to go to the items that the scout has. You can see here the scout starts off with an energy weapon that's a rifle. And it starts at its maximum of 4 ammo. It's combat only. It obviously goes in your hands because of the hand symbol. And honestly, it's just an okay weapon. It's better because you get more ammo than a lot of the other characters inside of Nemesis, maybe aside from the captain or the soldier. But it's good enough to where it can deal out some damage. It can make sure that you stay alive. But what I really want to get into is the quest items, because that is where it's really going to be useful for the scout. One of these quest items that the scout has, I would say, while the soldier was more of a, I think you must activate both the quest items that the soldier has, I think that the scout is a little bit more optional. I'd say that I would always just see if you want them for just in case, but they're not necessarily required. Although, in my personal preference, I would say to always activate them, because they can be good depending on the situation that you're in. Sometimes you don't even need them at all because you've been lucky with dice rolls and what have you. But there's one, regardless on if you think that you should always activate both, or if you should only really focus on one, that there's one quest item in particular that you should always have, and it's the motion scanner. The motion scanner is going to cost you 1 action card from your hand in order to be able to activate. Again, I am not a fan of the requirements that it takes in order to activate this item of discarding an energy charge, because energy charge, like I said, you have an energy weapon, so you're going to need those in order to make sure that your ammo stays full, or if you want to open and close doors. But I want to say that this is probably the only quest item that I have seen where discarding an energy charge might actually be worth it. Because the energy scanner is a non-combat card, which you could see right up here. It's also a heavy item, so it goes in your hand. And what it does is that you can discard an action card from your hand to re-roll the result of your noise roll. And you can only do it once for every noise roll that you do. That is huge. Like, you guys have no idea how sometimes a noise roll is the difference between you getting off the ship. Because of the fact that because it's for every noise roll, that means if you move, you do a noise roll, you can discard an extra card in order to re-roll the noise. If you're trying to escape from an escape pod, you have to do a noise roll there, so you might want to use the motion scanner in order to make sure that you get in the escape pod to get out. Or if you're at the end of the game and you're trying to go to the hibernatorium, you're going to want to use the motion scanner because, again, you have to do another noise roll in order to get out. So, the scout is going to be really useful with this item in order to be able to get out of the room. Or get out of the game. To where it might be a little bit more difficult for some objectives to be able to do stuff with her, but she's going to be really good at sneaking through and slipping and being able to quickly escape, because sometimes it's really just a matter of what it takes. Is that sometimes it takes you a while to get your objective, but for a lot of other characters, they're going to have a hard time trying to get out, even if the objective was easy, because of just the way that the time constraints and everything pans out. Whereas the scout is going to have an easier time escaping, maybe not so much on the objective part. It all really just depends. So I would say this is probably the only quest item that I have seen to where discarding an energy charge is actually worth it. The next quest item that I have here is that we have the security key, which is the other one that the scout has. It's going to cost you one action card in order to activate, but you activate this room from the cockpit, which is probably the easiest room to access because it's always there. There's no need to explore, place an exploration token, or anything like that at all. It's always there. You just got to get there, pay that card in order to turn this on. Now, when you do turn it on, it is a non-combat card only. No aliens have to be in the room. And it's going to cost you one card to use, and it is one use only in comparison to it being a heavy item like the motion scanner. And what it does is that you could choose any one room and close and open any doors in all corridors connected to this room. You may choose which doors to close and which doors to open. The reason that this is important is that, one, it can help you if there's a lot of doors closed, get to where you need to go. Or, if you're trying to get somebody killed, you can lock all of the doors to where they have no way out from escaping from an alien. So, it could be a good way to knock out those corporate objectives if you feel that you need to do that way. Or if you're trying to be more sneaky, like I said, you can use it to open doors if there's aliens all in the neighboring rooms, to where you shut all the doors, to where if you roll danger, all the aliens have to break the doors before they get to you. So it gives you that little bit of extra time, and time is of the essence inside of Nemesis. And it'll just sit inside of your inventory slot until you decide to use it, which is absolutely great. It doesn't require hands, no nothing like that at all. Of course, just like every character in Nemesis, there's generic cards that the scout has. Demolition, basic repairs, 2 search cards, interruption card, and a rest card. So overall, what do I think of the scout? I think there's a lot more pros and cons here, because you have it's harder sometimes for the scout to complete the objectives, which is the whole point of why you're sticking around on the ship of Nemesis. But she has a very easy time when it comes to trying to escape, especially if you have that motion scanner activated, if you're using the security key whenever you need it. So that's honestly where it just all depends, is what are your objectives, and is it an objective to where you think you'll have to be sneakier? And it gives you that variability to where it could be good to activate both quest items, definitely the motion scanner, but you have a little bit more leeway in comparison to where I feel that you're not as dependent on your quest items as, say, the mechanic with the plasma torch, which I think is crucial. Whereas with the soldier, I think it's an absolute must that he has his quest items, things of that nature. But I'd say the real cons is that she's a balanced, stealthy, and combat, but not much of anything else. So that's really all there is to the scout.